quite common. If you really look carefully, a lot of kids will have a little bit, tiny bit of whitish stuff on the teeth. But if I ask anyone who look at the kids or you have your kids yourself, probably you may miss it. You don't know that they have it unless you really look carefully for that. Actually, only around majority of kids will have it. Probably only 60%. Sorry, only 40% of it don't have it. So that means majority of kids have fluorosis. But most of them are questionable and very mild. So only 3%, 3 to 6% is has moderate to severe one. Right? And fluoride is everywhere, not just the fluoride intake that we use. Right? And how about the harmful? Is it harmful to our health to add the fluoride in the water? No. There's no study to show that it has any effect on the health. If you're talking about less than 1 part per million. And we have long-term history of people using water at that naturally, and no problem has ever been reported with that. Now, but many people say, show me the data, right? So let's look at that. Actually, fluoride in the skin, when you take a lot of fluoride, they will deposit in the bone. If too much fluoride, it can make it weaker. And there's a study in China and using the natural fluoride as a way to look at the relation with factor. And they found that the higher the number, the more the factor is. And when they're too low, actually it's also higher. And the lowest factor rate is actually at around 1 part per million. So it appears to be a little bit protection effect. Same as a prospective study done published in 2000 and found that in the BMJ and found that actually we decreased the risk of fracture with the water fluoridation. And there's a study about the osteosarcoma. Is a doctor who is doing his PhD thesis in 2001 and found that there seemed to be an increase in risk of osteosarcoma in boys if they drink water at this age. How they do a study? They include they have found is from Harvard. Okay, so there's one of the biggest centers in the world. They collect up to 1,000 patients, and they use 100 patients. Sorry, and they have 200 patients as a control, and then they ask the history: where did they live, what kind of fluoride they use, and then they assign for every age for these 100 patients. Some patients, okay, they ask them and assign say at the age of 1, how much percent of them are in the high risk, have fluoride in the water, and how many are not, and so 1, 2, 3 years and so on. And they found that from 1 to 6, there's no relation. But if you drink water, you stay in the area at the age of 7, then there's a relation. And after 7, it's okay as well. All right? So think about it, right? What they are talking about is 5% chance, all this 95% in the confidence interval. And with that means, 1 in 220. That means you study 30 study just randomly, there will be one study may be statistical significant. I went to statistics, know about it. So if you look at that, you study 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, suddenly at 7, it is statistical significant. Not only that, it's 5 times more. Why it need to be that high? Because you can see the confidence interval is above 1. All right, so that you can see how wide is the range because the number is very small. So with this study, everyone call it, it increase the chance of osteosarcoma. But does it support by other data? Let's look at that. This is the study by a Canadian. They used the CDC data and from 1999 to 2006. And the whole United States. There are around there's actually the exact number is 534 cases of boys and 200 some cases for the female. And they found that there's higher, of course, of boys compared with girls, but there's no difference whether they stay in the fluoridated area as not fluoridated, low fluoridation, compared with high fluoridation. So that you can see that there's no difference, 11.6 and 11.5. This data, I don't know what has happened, and they combine together is lower. No one found it, I don't know why, but they say when they combine the two together, there's something wrong, but I don't know what's going on with it. They do not have the original data, so I don't know why they combine together is lower if they separate the two. Anyway, another thing is that they also do not mention what are the chances to miss a difference. Now, they just say that there's no difference. Now, if you know the statistics, they know about the beta, beta. That means the type 2 error. Can it miss anything? They do not mention anything. I do the calculation for them. I know that they know, but they do not, on purpose, not print it. And I found that if you use beta as 20% and using the same incidence, and with the number of 354, I may go wrong the number, then I get the number is 49.7%. That means with this number of patients, you are going to have more than 30% chance of missing a difference of 40-some%. All right. So that means I will not be able to detect a 40% increase. But is it important? It's a different story. But what I want to say is that the chance of any significant increase of more than 50% will be picked up by this study. But no paper studied it. The paper does not publish that. But you are the one you need to know whether it's significant or not. All right. I hope I passed the message today. I want to say that all this study is meaningless because the number even smaller. With this, even double the incidence will be missed. There's different study, all this study. The number is only around 100 something. The condition is so rare that no study will be able to prove there's not a small increase in number. But because the disease is so uncommon, even if there's a 30% increase, it's still justified to protect all the people here of more than 40% of dental cavities. So many of the studies say that more studies need to be done. That's wrong. No more studies should be done. Should not waste any energy in that, in my opinion. So anyway, this is another study so that they use a very small number of patients and they found that there's no relation. They use the bone itself going to see whether there's relation with fluoride, and so there's no relation with it. Cancer, no relation. Hypothyroidism, no study. And actually, the UK is different. The UK said don't spend more energy. There is no priority. Don't study anymore. Birth defect, no. We have tissue in all the low, high natural fluoride area. We don't see any increase in incidence. Okay, go to the kidney. It decrease the fluoride secretion though. All right, if you have kidney impairment, but the kidney foundation say that if you are in the first B stage and with the GFR more than 30 mil per minute per 1.73 meters square, you probably have the same risk. But if you have higher, then you retain more fluoride. If in around 4 to 5, you can retain more than 4 times of the fluoride than a person with a normal kidney function. And recently, the EPA decreased the fluoride of a possible toxic range down to 2 parts per million. So with that, if you multiply the water fluoridation of 0.7 times 4, if they secrete less, then you put them into the risk of a possible harmful effect. With that theoretical reason, so that's why The Kidney Foundation say that I cannot support it. But there's no data. No data has ever shown that drinking water in this group actually have any harmful effect. And it is actually a response to the EPA or decrease the tolerance level. All right. So, but they are talking about the group of kids of patients that have kidney disease, all right, of end-stage kidney disease. So how about IQ? And there's also some studies so that they can affect the IQ. One of the most common code is in the Harvard study. But what do? They compare the one that had 4.55 as compared with 0.8, compared with this one. This is the only exception. But nearly all of them, the control group that has the good IQ is the one that have the fluoride of the same as what we are talking about of the water fluoridation of 0.7. They're using really high fluoride level. Then they may affect the IQ. But all these studies are in China and in Iran. They don't have very good IQ tests, not very reliable tests. I really still doubt, even with that kind of number of high fluoride in the water, the effect on the IQ. Anyway, there are many effects has been claimed, but as what I say, there's really no data to support that. So the MRC of UK recommend don't do any more study in those areas. It's a waste of resources. So let me talk about the chemistry. It is naturally occurring in the rock. So how do we add the fluoride in the water? We add the fluoride using these are the three chemicals. We can use sodium fluoride, sodium fluorosilicate, or fluorosilic acid. And how are they produced? It's produced by boiling the rock with sulfuric acid, and then we release the two things. One is the hydrogen fluoride, and the other is silicon fluoride. Why silicon? Because silicon is in the rock, all right? It's a course, it's the fluoride, it's the silicon, So when they hit with the sulfuric acid, these two will come out, and then if you use the condensation, just like distillation, then you will come up with a aqueous solution of fluorosilic acid. And this fluorosilic acid can be neutralized with sodium hydroxide and will form the sodium fluoride or the sodium fluorosalicylate. These for any water is controlled by the EPA, and the EPA set the standard of the maximum contamination level. And the EPA also commissioned another non-profit organization to set the standard for the contaminant level. And it's the AWWA who set the requirement for how the water is being produced. On the other hand, the fluoride drop that we make is controlled by the FDA. They don't have any regulation on the contaminant. So that means it doesn't matter. As long as the certain concentration is satisfied, that quality, that will be fine. So whether they're contaminated, we don't test for it. We just rely on the manufacturer to do it. So how about the sodium fluoride that we use for the pills? It has three sources. One is from natural phosphorus, and one is from industrial waste. That is the fluoride being used and what left behind. And one is from the one we add into the fluoride water with the fluorosilic acid. Why I mentioned that? Because many people worry that can there be a lot of arsenic in the fluoride that we use. And it's true that there may be some contamination, but actually we sample it. This is the number arsenic, all right? 10 part per million is the number that is the maximum current action. But what the ANSI, the standard allowable, is only 1. And in reality, only 50% of that has contamination, 50% doesn't. And it's The high is only 0.6. It's really negligible compared to the level that we set. Actually, in our area, natural current is really, very high. Up to 50 parts per million in our water. If you use the well here, you may be at risk. And actually, Cornell Lake, the water is more than 25. And they have a technique. They need to have a technique required by the EPA to decrease the water for the arsenic in the water. So they have a method that is really good and it's published, and they tell the rest of the country that this is the way to use it. And actually, the Cornell Lake they have in the water, for the arsenic level is need to be lower artificially. And we're talking about 10, okay? Not talking about that can be caused by the at most of 0.6 that's increased in that. So you can see the number, all right? So, but if you have a well here, better check with it. Because in our area, really high in arsenic level, all right? And not just that, arsenic is actually a lot in apple juice. We don't have any control until recently because of consumer report. And I talk about rice silver as well. I don't have enough time now. I'm going to skip through. Sometimes there's contamination because of error. The pump can work wrong. In 1974, 1979, 1992, the pump malfunctioned and caused many people have been affected. But all this is 20 years ago. After that, we have a lot of regulation and check. None happened anymore. But I also look at the data, and we found that the toothpaste is even more a problem. I just looked at the data from the National Pollution Center, the data, and we found that more than 20,000 a year. And actually, it can be a problem. So you can see, yeah, there's a risk of a pump malfunction, but it's much lower compared to other possibilities. Now, how about international comparison? This is the international comparison, or from the National Fluoride Network, whatever, that they are against the use of fluoride. And you can see that all this is getting better. All from, you know what, from Europe, except one is from Japan up here. All right, now look at the data. That is I get it from another paper. And you can see that Japan is here, Macau is here, Hong Kong is here. The number, look at the number, 0.8. Now these is all fluorinated. Hong Kong 100% fluorinated. Korea 2.2 is not here. It's not fluorinated. Japan not fluorinated. And Macau is not fluorinated. Why I mention Macau and Hong Kong? I come from Hong Kong. I know. Hong Kong and Macau is two cities opposite each other on the side of the Pearl River. We can take the boat from one to another place in an hour. The people there is exactly the same. The habit, everything is exactly the same. The only difference is that Hong Kong is a British colony and Macau is a Portugal colony. And because of that, Hong Kong fluorinated, Portugal no. So that is the difference. So 1.8 and 2. It's hard to compare Europe with other countries of different habit. But these two cities, I would say, is exactly the same. We have relatives over here on our side by some of my classmates from Macau, and they're exactly the same. The only difference, fluoride. And you see a big difference in number. And I want to say that Macau is really rich because it's the #1 in the world in gambling. You can see the number, all right? That this is the GDP compared to Hong Kong, richer in Hong Kong, all right? But Hong Kong is brighter though. This is the IQ. So it's not fluoride help. Why? I know this is the reason. The reason is because of they don't have very good high school. All the kids, if they want to go to a good school, they go to Hong Kong to attend a high school there. Okay, the cost of fluoridation, I think the time is up now, but I want to say that it's really, this number I do it myself. I get it from the what, I type in all the number, I get the number of around 0.18 per customer per month. Very low.